This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. As the annual NATO summit wrapped up in Madrid Thursday, we got to look at just how fast-tracked Sweden and Finland's applications to join the military alliance might be, and how that might impact sky-high tensions between Russia and the Western world.
Before the war started, I told Putin that if he invaded Ukraine, NATO would not only get stronger, but would get more united.
For a little recap, the two Nordic nations were formally invited on Wednesday, as in the day before Thursday, to join the alliance. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said they will launch the process of ratifying the planned NATO membership of Sweden and Finland this week and will conclude it, quote, very quickly. For comparison, it took North Macedonia, the most recent country to join the bloc, more than a year to get through the process. When the North Atlantic Treaty Organization was first formed in 1949, there were 12 members. Today, it's more than doubled in members to include 30 countries. Every time a country wants to join, it needs to be unanimous among all the members, and Turkey hadn't exactly signed off on Finland and Sweden until Wednesday. So what else needs to happen to make it official? The legislatures of all 30 current members must sign an accession protocol before individually ratifying it back home. The candidates must also formally accept the obligations of membership. NATO has an open door policy where any country can be invited to join if it expresses an interest, as long as it is able and willing to uphold the principles of the bloc's founding treaty. The original point of the treaty was to deter the Soviet Union from attacking liberal democracies that lacked military strength. One of the cornerstones of the alliance is Article 5, saying that an attack on one member is considered an attack against all, which guarantees that resources from any and all NATO members can be used to protect each other. There are some other requirements, like NATO members must be democracies, treat minorities fairly, and commit to resolving conflicts peacefully. Still though, this marks a significant shift from two countries that had largely remained unaffiliated, so to speak. Finland declared independence from Russia in 1917, and during the Cold War, Sweden adopted a neutral foreign policy stance.
Becoming a NATO member would actually mean that we leave 200 years of military non-alignment. So this was not the easy decision to take for me as Prime Minister, but I'm sure it was the right decision.
If Finland joined NATO, it would add another 800 miles to the military alliance's border with Russia. The additions would also give NATO member states control of key areas in the Baltic Sea. When asked his thoughts on the move, Russian President Vladimir Putin said he has no problem with the two countries joining NATO, but also noted that if infrastructure is deployed to those countries, Russia will respond similarly. During the summit, NATO deemed Russia its most significant and direct threat. On Thursday, Biden announced that the United States will provide a further $800 million in assistance to Ukraine as the war-torn nation calls for more support during ongoing Russian attacks. Rosie Burchard has more on the summit's last day in Madrid.
I was at President Biden's press conference here, and he said the fact that these Nordic nations are seeking to join the club proves that Russian President Putin's attempts to divide and weaken NATO have failed. Now, Biden came here with a promise of more support for Ukraine, but also more backup for Eastern European and Baltic NATO members that fear Russia might set its sights beyond Ukraine and that they might be next. Now, Biden announced that more US troops will be deployed to beef up eastern flank defenses, something welcomed by Baltic nations. I remember when Biden made his first trip to Europe as president, and he told his counterparts here that the United States was back. That was after some very rocky and unstable years for this alliance. In 2019, French President Macron branded NATO as brain dead, and there were fears that President Trump might try to pull the US out entirely. Now, undoubtedly, Washington is the major security provider for European NATO allies, and however, some leaders here will be wondering who might be in the White House next and how long they can count on that ironclad commitment pledged by President Biden. Rosie Burchard for Newsy, Madrid.